It's so funny you bring up the forbidden area of the video store, and ours had a curtain, like an actual
Yeah,
curtain, a red curtain at movie stars.
I
Um,
remember that
I
curtain.
remember, yeah, I remember even at age 15. Okay, at age 15, I had already done the deed in real life, and I was still too fucking scared to go behind that curtain because it just felt wrong. So. Hey guys, welcome to the Video Express, where we dust off old VHS tapes and discuss all things horror, sci-fi, and exploitation. I'm Matt,
And I'm Katie.
and we want to introduce a very special guest on tonight's show. With us is none other than Jackie Kelly, the wonderful, beautiful actress of movies such as In Memory of, The Precious and the Damned, and Tennessee Gothic. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. So, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's get things rolling, guys. Are you ready? Katie, tell our fine listeners what movie we're spotlighting on tonight's episode.
Okay, so today we are talking about The Terror Within, the 1989 horror sci fi movie produced by Roger Corman, directed by Thierry Knotts. Interesting name. And for those of you who may have not heard of this movie or seen it, it's a post-apocalyptic future where 99% of humans have been wiped out by a virus, which in 2021 feels just way too on the nose. um, we follow a team of CDC employees trying to survive in an underground bunker in the Mojave Desert, but their base is attacked by mutated human monsters they call gargoyles. After rescuing a woman from above ground, they realize that these gargoyles are out for more than just blood.
I love it. I love it a lot. And I guess it's right now, since you've already introduced the movie and said, it's, of course, a Roger Corman produced flick. We are announcing that tonight is episode 1 of our 2-episode Roger Corman month. And what better way to start off with this
Yes.
wonderful, ooey gooey, radioactive monster movie? But before we dive into The Terror Within, Katie, why don't you tell us what's going on today in the cinema world?
Okay, so today, the day this episode is being released is May 5th. So, first of all, happy Cinco de Mayo to all those who celebrate. But also, we are celebrating a very important birthday today, and today is Lance Henriksen's 81st birthday. And I love him
Woo!
so much. He is known for his iconic roles in Aliens, Pumpkinhead, Alien vs. Predator, Scream 3, the TV series Millennium, and so much more. He's in so much stuff, and he is just an absolute legend. So, very happy birthday from Video Express to Lance Henriksen. And then I have 3 recommendations for you today. So the first one is a movie that hasn't come out yet, but it's one I'm very excited for. This movie actually will be coming out next Friday, May 14th, and it is called Spiral from the Book of Saw. This is the 9th movie in the Saw franchise, which I haven't seen all of the Saw movies, but I really love these movies. They are very ridiculous. But what's most appealing about this one is that it stars Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson as detectives investigating a series of murders that seem to be reminiscent of the Jigsaw murders. So I am very excited to see this new take on that movie.
I hate the name.
Yeah, I'm fine with just Spiral on its own, but when I was looking it up today, I saw that it was like Spiral from the Book of Saw, and I was like, just call it
Well,
Spiral.
like,
That's okay.
I mean, all right. Here's the thing with me, and here we go. But fucking first tangent. We haven't even started talking about Terror Within, and here I fucking go. Um, so I feel like that's a very very bad marketing strategy on their behalf because it doesn't matter. I feel like age group doesn't really matter so much on this type of movie because everybody has heard of Saw at this point,
Hmm.
and the audience is going to see this movie. That demographic has heard of Saw. So I know this is probably like a really cliche title, but something like Saw Reborn or something
Mm,
like that. Because here's the thing, you're calling it Spiral, but yet you're playing it off as a spin-off or a sequel to the Saw series. But to the uninformed, you hear a movie called Spiral, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is a spiral? You know what I'm saying? So I feel
yeah.
that the reason the Book of Saul was used as the subtitle, um, it makes a little bit of sense, but I just wish they'd have called it something else. All right, tangent
That's
over.
fair. I think just to add on to this tangent before I move on, I think they're trying to like walk this really fine line of like if they just called it like Saw 10 or whatever, it would just sound super ridiculous and would probably not have like mass appeal. Like it would only be for those people who are like really into Saw and are like ready for another Saw movie. So I think they tried to like walk this line where it's like it's Spiral. You don't know it's related to Saw unless you like really look into it. So I don't know. I think they're just trying to have some mass appeal there. But either way, I'm very excited to see what they do with this. But I do have two more recommendations today. These are not really new movies. They're just movies that I watched recently and really enjoyed. And I feel like, I just always like to recommend something because, like I say, pretty much every episode, there's just so much out there on all like there's like 10 different streaming services that you have to be able to keep up with everything at this point. So in case you missed it, there is a movie from 2020 called Lucky. It is a Shudder original, and it is a very unique take on like the slasher kind of home invasion kind of movie. I'll say right now it's probably not for everyone and it's a little weird, but I really enjoyed it. And it basically centers around a woman who every single night a crazed serial killer in a creepy mask breaks into her house and tries to kill her. And every time she fights back and she ends up killing him, but he just disappears before the cops can arrive. So she's basically like nobody believes that this is happening to her. So it's kind of her trying to figure out how she's going to handle this problem by herself because nobody believes her. So that is recommendation number one. And then my final recommendation of today is going to be none other than the 2021 reboot of the Wrong Turn series. So I love the original Wrong Turn. I love it so much, and I was a little skeptical going into this reboot. It's not a remake like at all. It's definitely just it's totally different. And I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. It's definitely a departure from like inbred deformed hillbillies attacking you in the woods. It definitely goes more into like the cult movie, kind of like a cult story. But I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really interesting, and yeah, check it out. It's not on Shutter. I had to rent it, but it's worth the watch in my opinion.
You know how controversy follows me everywhere, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
It's like no matter what I do, no matter what I say, I piss somebody off or I rub somebody the wrong way, and 90% of the time it's unintentional. 10% it's probably intentional. Um, but when the trailer dropped for this new Wrong Turn movie, I watched the trailer and I was like, man, this looks really good. Like the trailer was a really well done, trailer. I liked it. It hooked me. I was in from the get go. And I made a I made a post on Facebook, which was, something you should, I guess, never do. Um,
Never do
but
that.
I made a post saying this. I said this trailer looks great. Can't wait to see it. I just wish they had called it something else because it looks nothing like the other Wrong Turn films. And I immediately got backlash from an actor that's in the movie who
Oh no.
was basically telling me I wasn't entitled to my opinion because the movie is written by the same writer who did the first one. And I was just like, I don't really know why that matters because I mean, Joel Schumacher wrote Lost Boys, but then he wrote Batman and Robin, so what the fuck does that matter? But it's whatever. I do want to see it, but I still stand my ground that I don't like reboots such as that where you take the bare essence of what the original was, but then completely change it up. If you're going to reboot something, fucking reboot it and keep what the audiences loved about it, but then change the other stuff. But it seems like they did kind of the opposite. When people think of Wrong Turn, they think of the inbred redneck hillbillies. Like that's their Hook, that's their Jason, that's their Freddy, that's their Michael Myers, that's their Leatherface. And I think once you deface that, you take that out of the equation, and you're putting out a movie called Wrong Turn with different types of killers. It kind of ruins the point in a way. Like, you don't make Texas Chainsaw Massacre without a Leatherface. I don't care if, and you know what, that
Yeah.
brings it back. That actor that called me out saying, "Well, it's by the same writer." I'm sorry, but Kim Henkel, who was the co-writer on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was also the writer of Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Have you seen the differences between those two movies? One is a fucking cult masterpiece, and the other one is a steaming dog turd. But same writers. Anyway, second tangent already of the night, and we're not even like fucking 15 minutes in. All
But
right, I'm done.
yeah,
I'm done with that one. Done with that one.
you're that I think it's totally valid to have that opinion about reboots. Like, that's totally I don't think that's controversial because frankly, this really feels like the only thing that, to me, the only similarity between this new Wrong Turn and the original is just the concept of being in like backwoods West Virginia, or in this case it's in backwoods Virginia, which you and I, Matt, know very well. And it's just about people who aren't used to being in that environment being shoved into that environment and being afraid of the people that are there. So that kind of vibe is still there, but what they are afraid of is very different. So yeah, I agree. It probably could have had a different name, but I have no complaints. I think it's worth watching. And that's it for me for recommendations.
No more recommendations?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for all the rundowns on the haps with what's going on in the cinema world, Katie. So let's go ahead. Let's roll right into it. Jackie, let's talk about The Terror Within. This was your first time watching it. It was probably like my 20th time watching it. What was your initial thoughts? What did you think of The Terror Within?
Well, first off, how have you seen that movie 20 times? I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could get through it 20 times. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I liked it. I did not love it. I was a little surprised because it was definitely more action than horror. I was expecting more of a horror film, and I thought it was, and I'm sure this was going to be part of the discussion anyways, but it is like a blatant copy of Alien. It's like
Absolutely.
the same movie, which is, it's so weird because the film came out in 1989 and Alien came out in 79, and this is the type of movie that you would expect to have come out in 80 or 81, but they waited a decade to make a blatant ripoff of Alien.
I love that you immediately bring that up because I have in my notes Roger Corman, basically through Concord and New World Pictures, his two different production companies, which were basically the same company, from basically from 79 to 89, that's almost all that he did was Alien ripoffs. This was like one of like 30 Roger Corman produced Alien ripoffs. So yeah, you definitely nailed it like right away.
Yeah, it just seems like so late to do something like that. It just seems like the steam from Alien was like long gone. But
Right.
hey, they did what they wanted to do. And I was actually surprised by a turn that the film took. The idea of femininity and pregnancy and all that stuff kind of like caught me off guard. I didn't think it was going to go there, but I really liked that stuff quite a bit.
It's really great because Roger Corman has been a champion of feminism, honestly, for decades, and nobody really realizes this. But he has gone out of his way. I mean, let's face it. This man is the fucking king of cinema, and in my eyes, the man has produced over 400 movies. He has brought us some of the greatest genre movies of all time. And what people don't realize is how much work that he has given to people. I mean, Jack Nicholson got his start because of Roger Corman. Vincent Price, even though who was an established star, kind of had that resurgence career because of Roger Corman. Francis Ford Coppola got his start because of Roger Corman. And what people don't realize is how many female filmmakers got their start because of Roger Corman. Matter of fact, one slasher franchise that people love is, of course, the Slumber Party Massacre trilogy, and people don't
Yes.
realize that they were
Mhm.
all written and directed by female filmmakers because Roger Corman literally was like, "I want them to do it," and he championed that for so long. And I don't feel like Roger really gets the notoriety that he deserves for being that much of a badass producer who not only can turn out movies on a dime, but who has gone above and beyond for recognition of female filmmakers. And it's really weird that we've got a wonderful female actress on our show tonight, and we're talking about this subject. And I just went into this whole and it's basically what this is like a female month. So what great way to start this fucking show off.
Well, when we're recording this, it's Women's Month, but I don't know what month May is, but you know what? Every month can be
It's
Women's Month as
Women's
far
Month.
as I'm
That's right.
concerned.
I'm fine with that. All right, Jackie, what else did you think of The Terror Within?
I see. Here's the thing: is I'm like a huge horror fan. I can't say that I'm like super well versed in Roger Corman. Obviously, I've seen some of his films, but like not even close to the you say 400 titles that he's produced. Um, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with it being a Corman film, I was expecting a smaller budgeted film. And like I understand that it wasn't like a big budgeted movie, but it looked slicker than I expected it would.
One thing about Roger Corman that his fucking movies, like, again, he could churn out some really great looking stuff on a dime. It's because the man was a goddamn genius, and you don't produce 400 movies without being a fucking genius. But he basically would build a set for one movie, and they would write a script for one movie, and they would finish that movie, and they would find a way to basically Frankenstein that exact same script and that exact same set and do a whole nother movie. And you could watch that movie almost back to back with the one that they just did. And you can still see where they use the same shit, but it still feels like a different movie. He knew how to utilize his money and get the most bang for his buck. And he had their own studio, but the studio was inside of like like the old log houses, like where they would cut down the trees and store the logs and stuff for the timber yards. So basically a timber yard building. He took a timber yard building, and turned it into a studio, but he never changed the exterior of the timber yard to look like a studio. So nobody fucking knew that this timber yard was Roger Corman's studio. A, because he didn't want to fucking spend the extra money to give it a facelift, and B, it was a way to get around paying fucking fees and taxes. But yeah, the man was a
Oh, I
genius.
love that.
He could, yeah, he could make $10 look like 10,000. And so yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. He again, the movie doesn't look like extremely like glitzy and glamoury and slick and polished, but it is a step up from your straight to video schlock of that era for sure.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah, I also was a little pleasantly surprised at the production value of this movie because I also, I'm also familiar with Roger Corman, but I've never really watched any of his movies. And so knowing what I kind of knew about Roger Corman, I was expecting some totally schlocky, like not even a B movie, like a C movie quality, like production value. So I was like pleasantly surprised that it was a little bit tighter than that. Overall, I thought this movie was goofy as hell though. It is so goofy. It is, I also put in my notes the same as you, Jackie, like they're not even trying to pretend that this isn't a straight up Alien ripoff, which I kind of love. Like the fact that it was so obvious that it had to be almost intentional almost made it kind of like endearing to me in a way. um over this, I also liked it. I wouldn't say I loved it. This feels like a movie that you stumble across on TV, like on Showtime or some shit at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep and you're trying to find something to watch, and so you just end up watching this. Like I was thoroughly entertained throughout, and definitely laughed out loud at several parts. But yeah, I would say, I try to be as positive as possible on this show with movies. So I take no joy in overly bashing a movie. So I would say overall I enjoyed this one.
So Jackie just asked, "How is it possible that I've seen this movie 20 times?" Um, what you just said, Katie, is exactly why I caught this movie on late night television a lot. And of course,
Of
as I've
course.
said a million times, yeah, as I've said a million times on past episodes, and as you know, Katie, I'm an only child who stayed up, was a night owl all growing up, watching late night horror movies, watching USA Up All Night, watching Monster Vision, watching USA Saturday Nightmares, shit like that. And it's funny. The three movies that really stick out to me, um, like talking about this, is of course this movie, Watchers Part Two, which is another Roger Corman produced film, which I will talk about more later because there's a lot of connections, and The Howling Four, which oddly enough is minorly connected to this movie. Because they are three movies that I would see in regular rotation around the same time, and they both have the kind of same look and feel. But that's how I saw this movie multiple times on television. And then when my local video store, which was named Video Express, went out of business, I purchased a ton of VHS tapes from them, and The Terror Within was one of them. So I would pop it in, every couple years I'd pop it in. And then I think last year, me and my best friend had a movie night in my man cave, and we did Terror Within 2, um, a bunch of other Roger Corman movies, whatever. So I wanted to throw this on a list because I knew it was something that a lot of people hadn't seen, and I knew that if I was going to do Roger Corman month, I didn't want to talk about like his like pristine works. I want to do shit like this. So yeah, I've seen it 20
Yes.
times because I'm a fucking nutso cinephile since a young age. But I also, that's why I wanted it on Video Express, because I love the VHS tape. It's probably one of those instances where the VHS cover is actually better than the movie, but it's still, nostalgic for me.
Classic. Yeah, so I had a very different experience watching this movie because I wondered if you watched it on VHS because I found it on Tubi.com streaming for free, which I will sing the praises of all the time because they are, completely free. You don't even have to make an account to use them, and they have so many crazy movies. Like just browsing through their catalog is like the closest thing that I can get to like walking through a horror movie aisle at a video store in 2021. But the funny thing, the thing that kept making me crack up, which actually has nothing to do with the movie and just Tubi in general, is that there's ad breaks. That's what you get for it being free, and the ad breaks are just thrown in haphazardly. So it'd be like a really
Right.
intense moment. Sometimes it'd be like in the middle of somebody saying a line, and it just would be like, and buy this new razor from Skintimate or whatever, like in the middle of the scene, and I was just dying. Like it just was a completely different experience of watching it. But that was a little minor tangent. But before we kind of start talking about the characters and stuff, I did have a little thing that I wanted to read really quick because we love Joe Bob Briggs here at Video Express. And when this movie came out, he actually wrote a review for The Terror Within, and it had something that is
Ooh.
reminiscent of his drive-in totals. And so I kind of wanted to read those off for you now. For those listening who have never seen this movie or never even heard of it, hopefully this kind of helps paint a picture for you.
This is wonderful.
So first of all, First of all, he said this movie should be required viewing for every member of the Supreme Court, which I thought was hilarious. um, so then the totals that he says we're talking 17 dead bodies, no breasts, snake eating, bloody fetus monster, multiple throat slashing, giant gargoyle rape, one self-abortion, exploding sheds, exploding gargoyles, gratuitous monster abortion scene, the best one since It's Alive, buzzard foo, and crossbow foo. So I hope that
How
paints
many
a picture for you
stars?
guys.
How many
I
stars?
didn't I didn't get this I didn't see look, I'm a busy gal. I read this on Wikipedia, okay? That's all they included. That's all they had on the
Ah,
Wikipedia article.
all
But
I know
just
is
to
those
tease
drive-in totals were amazing.
just thank you. Yes, and just to tease something that we're going to talk about later in this episode. I might have haphazardly read through a Wikipedia page for part of my research for this, but I'll have you know that I had to get a free trial to some like newspaper archive website so I could find this particular story that is related to this movie, a true crime-esque tale that I will tell you guys later on in the episode.
Ooh, true crime.
You've piqued
All
my
right.
interest. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. All right. You know what? Let's we're gonna be here all night if things keep going this way. Um, we're having fun already. So let's go ahead. Let's just dive right into it. Let's talk about the actors slash characters talent of the film. Let's start with Andrew Stevens, who is our hero of the movie, the character of David. Jackie, what did you think of our leading man?
So here's the thing: we're talking about Alien and how this movie's like it's going for that vibe, and I couldn't totally get into this character just because I like Ripley, man. Like I like the idea of the female action hero, but I will say that the lead male in this movie has this great fucking line at the end. You know the line I'm talking about, right? When they blow
Adios,
up
motherfuckers.
the
Yeah.
adios motherfuckers.
Yes.
Like, so I mean, props to him because that wasn't pandering at all. That was great.
Speaking of line readings, I just wanted to point out he also has a really great line that I forgot he said until I was reading a review about this today, and then I went and looked up the scene again. But right after the botched C-section scene and the little alien baby escapes off into the vents and they're like trying to figure all this shit out and their equipment is like messing up, whatever. Basically he's like, Murphy and his goddamn law is shitting all over us.
I don't think I remember that line. I think that escaped me. That's
Yeah,
great.
I didn't pick
Wow.
up on it while I
That's
was
great.
watching, which I'm sad because it's so fucking hilarious. But yeah, I thought he's a pretty fun character. Like you, Jackie, I was also kind of hoping we'd have a female heroine if they were going for a full Alien ripoff. But I think he's pretty fun to follow. He's got a crossbow that is mostly useless for most of this movie. And he's got his hair is like that quintessential action movie lead in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
hair. And he likes dogs. He and his little dog are so cute. And
I like his dog. Yeah.
that is actually Andrew Stevens' real dog. Butch is his
Butch.
his
Really?
real dog in real life. Yep.
I will say my dog really liked this movie.
Yeah.
He always watches movies with us, and he was like super into this one because there was always a dog, and his little ears were perking up the whole time. So he enjoyed it.
Aw.
So
That's
thanks
so
for the
cute.
recommendation.
Yeah, that is one thing. I know we're talking about the character of David, but as far as like the dog Butch goes, when the dog gets attacked kind of halfway through, I was like, yep, that dog's, as soon as I saw the dog, I was like, it's a movie from 1989 and there's a dog, that dog's getting messed up. Like I'm preparing myself mentally for an awful scene with a dead dog. And then that little guy actually ended up making it through the whole thing. Like he was a little trooper. I was really excited that they didn't kill off the dog character.
Butch not only made it through this movie, but he is in the sequel.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Okay, well I have to see the
Yep.
sequel now. But something that I thought was really interesting about Andrew Stevens, well first of all, he directed the sequel, which
Yep.
I haven't
Oh, no
seen
shit.
yet, but that's fun. And he is now currently known as the president slash CEO of Andrew Stevens Entertainment and Stevens Entertainment Group, and he has produced or financed over 180 films. Most notably,
Boondock
movies
Saints.
like the Boondock Saints and the whole nine yards, and he's pretty much done every behind and in front of the camera role possible. So I thought that was really cool. Um, and yeah, overall he was a fun character to follow around.
So this is the old school cinephile in me. I don't know anything of that Andrew Stevens has done of late, but much like on our last episode with Andre Gower, where I like spewed forth my knowledge of fucking TV and everything. Of course, I'm a child of the '80s, and I grew up watching all the straight to video action, sci-fi, and horror movies. So I love actors like Wings Hauser and people like that who's got that same kind of like puffed grizzled hair and like the chiseled jaw. Like I love these types of action heroes. But Andrew Stevens actually, who used to be married to Kate Jackson, by the way, one of the original Charlie's Angels. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Hmm.
Oh
Um,
wow, I didn't know that.
but I actually I grew up watching Andrew Stevens on Dallas, the original Dallas TV show, because my mom used to watch it, so that's where I always knew him from. But also he was in the Animals Attack movie, Day of the Animals. So that's pretty much my extensive knowledge on Andrew Stevens. Um, but yeah, I knew he was a producer on Boondock Saints, but I had no idea that like he was like a huge producer that like did a lot.
Yeah, he's pretty established. I mean, I think it's a lot of I feel like I did just like a quick scroll through his very long IMDb, and I feel like it's a lot of like terror within level movies. But still,
Right.
like the fact that like I love knowing that people can make a career, like a lifelong
Mhm.
career out of just random B horror sci-fi movie after random B horror sci-fi movie. Like that's just so fun. Like just any time that you have the opportunity to like make a life out of making movies, like it doesn't matter if they're the, Oscar winning mainstream movies. It's just cool that you get to do that for your job.
It's all I've ever wanted.
Yep.
Same here, man. Same here.
Yep.
It's the most beautiful life.
So, speaking of beautiful, let's move on to another member of the cast. Let's talk about Star Andreef, who played Sue. Of course, she is most well known for movies like Dance of the Damned, Sinjanor, Amityville Dollhouse, Vampire Journals. But I also grew up watching her on another TV show. I just called myself out for watching Dallas when I was a kid with my mom. Another show that I grew up watching with my mom was General Hospital, which Star Andreef was on for a very long time. But let's skip past that. Let's just talk about her role in this movie. Jackie, what'd you think about the character of Sue?
So Sue was not the doctor character. Sue was
Right.
the
She was the love
anesthesiologist.
interest.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the love interest. Yes, who
Yeah.
I mean, I liked her. I like both of the female roles. I liked that they didn't get prettied up. I liked that they were just part of the boys club and yeah, I mean, I thought she was an interesting enough character. I wish that we would have seen, her self abortion in in
Same.
in in more
Yeah.
gratuitous violence. That's always what I want in most things. But I thought she was interesting enough. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I also felt a little like cheated out of a more gratuitous scene of her self-abortion. So just for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, basically these gargoyles like to assault women and impregnate them with their creepy little demon gargoyle baby, and it grows way faster than usual. So like overnight, you can go from not pregnant to suddenly like 8 months pregnant. So that's already like my worst nightmare in life. But I thought she decides she wants to get rid of it because nobody believes her that she has like a gargoyle baby in her. And then they just kind of come back in like 10 minutes later and find her dead on the floor with her stomach cut open. So I agree. I think it would have been a lot more effective if we had got to see that, or at least seen a lead up to it, and maybe they could cut away right before she actually does it, but just there was no indication that that's what she was about to do. um
Yeah.
I other than that, she's fine. I thought she's super cute. She was kind of annoying at the beginning, but I think that was kind of part of like the setup and payoff, because she has this line where like they rescue this girl from above ground and she's pregnant, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like you're so lucky, like you're gonna have a baby." And then
Yeah, I thought that was weird too. That was a
yeah,
very strange line.
I was like, why? I was like, first of all, I mean, I can understand somebody saying that in like a normal real world situation, if if they want kids and like the idea of being pregnant, but you guys are in the post apocalypse
Right.
where you're living
Yeah.
underground, and you're like, you're so lucky that you're gonna have a
Yeah.
baby and that we're gonna have another fucking mouth to feed in this underground bunker. So that was already kind of weird, but I think that was a cool setup, because then she does end up also getting pregnant with the demon baby. But yeah, I think there's not really a whole lot to her character, but I think that's fine. I think, I also appreciated that the female characters in this movie weren't like especially like dolled up or like sexed up. Like I really I felt like all the men kind of specifically had like alterations to their work uniform that were kind of like showing like who they were. Like the one guy's got like a Hawaiian shirt underneath, and like the other guy's got like the sleeves cut off. And I feel like in like maybe a sleazier movie, they would, the women would have had just, cleavage out, tits up to their chin, like half unzipped jumpsuit, which don't get me wrong, I love that. I'm a big fan of that. But it is just kind of refreshing sometimes to see that in a sci-fi movie where like the women on this team are seen as equals and are respected for their knowledge and their job just as much as everybody else on the team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a fine line, but of what I would do. I feel like I'm on both sides of the fence, Katie, and I think you know that. Like
Yeah.
half of me would do this exact, and then the other half of me would probably have like ridiculous like cut up outfits and cleavage. But I think what it would be like the first half of the movie, they would look exactly like how they are in this movie, but by the time the movie ends, they're like their costumes are like reduced to shreds or some shit. But
Classic.
yeah, classic. But no, I really liked her in this movie, and again, I grew up watching her on General Hospital. But also I really love her in Dance of the Damned and Amityville Dollhouse. That's two movies we'll probably eventually do on this show. And she's in every movie, not on General Hospital, but on every movie that I've seen her in, I never feel like she's really given enough to do. I don't feel like maybe she was given enough to do in this either, but I think she has a great presence, and she has like those really dark, beautiful eyes,
Hmm.
and she's easy on the eyes. So I just wish that there could have been more of her, and I agree with you full heartedly that there was definitely some character development going on with her. I think maybe it was written that way and well written, but maybe didn't come across well with the direction. But
Hmm.
I think she was serviceable. I think she was good. She did her role, and I have no qualms whatsoever with her acting. I think she did a good job on her acting.
Oh yeah.
All right, well, let's jump over to the other leading lady of the movie, who I know I just said how much I love Star Andrews, but Terry Trias. I fucking love this fiery redheaded woman. I grew up with her on TV as well, but she was also in The Nest. She was in Alien Nation for years. She was on the TV series and a bunch of the TV movies as well. But I also know her most from House Part 4. I love this beautiful woman. I wish she could do more. I wish she was in more. And she kicked ass in this movie. What was your guys' thoughts on Terry Trias, who played Linda?
I mean, I thought kind of like the other lead, but to an even greater extent, she was like very empowering. I thought she was really smart. She was strong, and to kind of piggyback off what you were saying though about the sexing up women in these movies, like on one hand, I agree. Where I'm like, maybe it's cool that it's everyone's equal and there's no distinction between genders, but I almost think like if the movie had more like or any TNA and stuff like that, I think it would have been more
Yeah.
entertaining because I think it would have been like more stylized, and I think it would have I think it would have done a better job like separating it from just being an alien ripoff. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like on one
I
hand I
agree.
really like this doctor character. I think she's like very intelligent. I think she's very strong-willed. She does a great job in her performance. Like I have no qualms with any of that, but I almost wish like some of this was just like fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think like with especially with the female characters, like I think that would have just heightened the entire experience.
Yeah, I totally agree, and like kind of like what Matt was saying, I think like a really great happy medium would be to like introduce the characters in more of like a neutral, everyone's equal, nobody's like dolled up, sexed up.
Right.
But then by the end of it, sometimes you got to rip off a sleeve to make a
You
tourniquet.
do.
Sometimes it's hot and you got to unzip that top a little bit, like give the people what they want.
Right.
But
Look. So they, they were obviously ripping off Alien. They Roger Corman did 50 million Alien ripoffs. But you know what nobody ever fucking attempted to do, and it boggles my mind, is we all have seen Alien. We all know that Alien was one of the greatest horror sci-fi movies ever made. But nobody has attempted the ending scene where Ripley strips down into the eye patch underwear. And
Yep.
this movie could have used some Star Andreef and Terry Triez eye patch underwear moments.
Just showing a little butt crack, just like a little bit, just like
a
a little
Yeah, I
peek.
think so.
There was, of course, Katie, as you would know this about me, a moment where if you pause it just right,
Oh, god damn it.
so if you pause this movie just right, you can see a little bit of boobage. No real nipple, but there is a little bit of boobage. It's when the gargoyle
Incredible.
is attacking Sue. And he's like
That's
ripping
right.
at her clothes and shit.
Really?
Yeah, if you
He
pause it
rips her
just right.
shirt open.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I guess
I'm
I'll have to
telling.
rewatch it because
Well, it's even better on VHS because you can, if you've got a VHS and like one of those old school VCRs where when you pause it, it does the frame by frame. You can really catch it there.
Yeah. See, the thing is, I watched this on Amazon Prime, and this was shot on video, correct?
No,
I believe
it
so,
just
yeah.
looks like it was.
Oh,
Oh.
so the version I watched on Amazon Prime, something with the conversion or the transfer of the film made the frame rate or something look real weird. So I think even if I tried to pause it on the boob shot, I wouldn't be able to.
That's
So
a damn
It
shame.
sucks.
I'll just like have to take your word for it.
So many of these movies, especially from this era of Roger Corman produced 80s flicks, nobody gave a fucking rat's ass about the transfers. So all of the digital copies and DVD copies are literally transferred from VHS source or like very early Laserdisc source. So was like, so basically me watching my worn out VHS copy is probably just as good as what you guys watched.
Yeah, I feel like the transfer on Tubi was pretty decent. I'm not actually, yeah, it was because it's taken directly from the Shout Factory Blu-ray like remaster of it. So that's just a fun thing to know for future reference. Like if you're trying to watch a Shout Factory movie, a lot of them are streaming for free on Tubi, which is kind of awesome. But as far as Linda goes, I'll kind of echo what's already been said. Like I thought she was a total badass. I really liked her character. I was really happy to see that she made it through to the end. I was a little worried about her there for a little bit. There are two kind of moments with her character that I felt were really out of character. And this has nothing to do with the acting. I thought she did a great job. This is more of just like a writing thing. But the first thing that just was very unbelievable to me is that she didn't believe Sue. Like, so Sue gets attacked by this gargoyle, and we've already established that the
Yeah.
gargoyles impregnate women, and that it's a weird alien mutant baby that grows way faster than normal. And so, while they rescue her, and while she's still unconscious, Linda does some tests on her and realizes that she's pregnant, and she's like, oh my gosh, like she's 1 month pregnant, like, and she just refuses to believe that it could even be possible that this gargoyle impregnated her. And so
Yeah.
Linda wakes up and immediately is like, no, like I'm not actually pregnant. I've never been pregnant. Like, this is definitely a gargoyle demon baby. Like, please get it out of me. And Linda just kind of blows her off and kind of refuses to believe her, which I thought was really weird and out of character with the rest of the movie. But at the same time, they had to find some reason to get Sue to try to self abort. So that, I guess that makes sense in that respect. But I think the most damning thing for me with Linda is, why did she take off the damn dog whistle? Why did she take it off her
That
neck?
Yes, as soon
So
as
she could
she
drop
did
it.
that, I was just like, "Why are you doing this?" I said it audibly, like I screamed it. I was
Yeah.
just like, "Why would you take that off?"
I
Yes,
was, yeah.
100%.
So again, for those of you who haven't seen it, so they established kind of halfway through the movie that the mutants are sensitive to high pitched noises, and that David's dog whistle, which he uses to train his dog Butch, is actually been keeping them away every time he has to go venture out into above ground. So she gets the dog whistle. They're crawling through the vents. They're trying to like set up this trap for the gargoyle, and the gargoyle is chasing her literally like on her heels, and she's climbing up this ladder and is like, now's a good time for me to just take this precarious thing off of my neck where I can easily drop it to be gone forever. My only defense against the gargoyle.
I was also confused as to why she didn't use it sooner.
Agreed.
Like, it just seems like you have this tool, and like, but I guess, to build tension, you've got to wait until right when the gargoyle is at your feet.
Yeah. I think it's also probably one of those things where, like, the thing that would actually happen in real life would not play well on screen. Like,
Sure.
an audience isn't going to want to hear a dog whistle blowing constantly for like 10 minutes straight. But if that was me, I'd be breathing in and out of that whistle. Like, I would constantly be using the whistle because I'm not letting that thing get anywhere near me.
All right, well, we've gotten to the part that I want to get to with the cast. I want to talk about Mr. George fucking Kennedy. Somebody that I know I've said this about everybody so far, how I grew up watching these guys, but George Kennedy, I fucking literally grew up watching on everything. The dude was in basically every Western growing up. Gunsmoke. He was in Cool Hand Luke, Delta Force. Of course, we know him from Creepshow 2, The Uninvited, Demon Warp, the Naked Gun films, and he was also in Dallas. I love George Kennedy. That man was a man's actor. He was that gruff, tough, Billy Badass, who could also play like the dad type. He was just that guy. Once you saw him on screen, you just immediately loved him, and no matter what the fuck he was in. And I really felt like he was the bread and butter of this movie. Like he was the anchor. He was Katie, for your reference. He was this movie's Christopher Lee to Howling 2. Um,
Yes.
so let's talk about Mr. George fucking Kennedy, who played Hal. Jackie, let's get you to go first. What was your feelings on George Kennedy in this movie?
Well, first off, George Kennedy is actually in one of my favorite films that you didn't mention, which is Just Before Dawn,
Ah,
the
okay.
Appalachian slasher
Yep,
film. I'm talking about Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
Go back and
yep.
watch Just Before Dawn. It's like the OG hillbilly horror movie, or one of them at least.
It's also probably the OG like Machete movie.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But with George Kennedy, he didn't get enough to do, man. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I thought. Like, he was just this guy in charge, and he didn't, like, he's a great actor, but I feel like he didn't get his moment to really show us who his character really was. I thought he was written quite bland in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a very funny review for this movie that said something along the lines of basically every time George Kennedy is acting in this movie, you can tell that he's in his head simultaneously trying to calculate how much money California taxes are going to take out of his
Right.
paycheck. So I feel like, you know, I feel like he was kind of phoning it in for this one, man. Like, I didn't really grow up watching George Kennedy other than, Creepshow 2 and some of those other kind of random things that he's popped up in. Cause like you said, Matt, he's been in a billion things. Like he's been so many things. So I instantly recognized him, even if I didn't have like a specific movie that came to mind. But he's definitely probably the best actor in this movie. And like you said, Matt, he's the Christopher Lee to this movie, as Christopher Lee was to The Howling 2. So he definitely like elevates it a little bit and was kind of a good advertising point for this movie. But again, he doesn't really get to do much. His death is really anticlimactic. It's mostly off screen, which I thought was really disappointing. I mean, he does get to say, "Die, you miserably ugly fuck," which is kind of awesome. But, other than that, we don't really get a whole lot of satisfying scenes with him. But one little fact about George Kennedy that I found out reading through his IMDb, that this is really only for my fellow born and raised in the 90s children, but he voiced the mammoth in the movie Cats Don't Dance from 1997, which was one of my favorite movies in elementary school and middle school. So when I saw that, I was pleasantly surprised.
Cats don't dance.
Cats Don't Dance. It might have been
I've
like a
never heard of it.
DreamWorks movie or something. It was like one of those Disney adjacent animated movies. It's like a musical about animals working in Hollywood, and it's very cute. But yeah, I feel like
I
only like
love cats.
3 people listening to this are gonna get that. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I was born
I
in
love cats and I
'93,
love
and
George
I've
Cats.
never heard of that movie ever.
yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know. I think I saw it when it came in theaters. I don't know. It was one of those movies I had on VHS, and I just would revisit every few
Huh.
years, and it's very cute. But yeah, he has a very cute role as a big mammoth in that movie.
On the next episode of Video Express, cats don't
Cats
dance.
don't dance. Oh my god. If only there were, there are some kind of scary for children scenes in that movie, but that's a different episode.
I mean, it might fit into the sci-fi exploitation. I don't know.
I can shoehorn it in there. I can make that work. Yeah.
It's a stretch, but we can do it. Yeah, so I agree with both you ladies. He definitely does not have a lot to do in this movie, and I think it's mostly my nostalgia button that keeps getting tickled every time he shows up on screen. Um, because he's the type of actor who has that presence, who he doesn't have to do much of anything for me to keep my eyes locked on the screen. And again, the a phrase I absolutely fucking hate is rose-colored glasses, but that's exactly what I'm wearing whenever George Kennedy is on screen. I'm probably sitting there thinking he's giving like a goddamn Oscar-worthy performance. Meanwhile, he's probably just said like two lines and then that's it. So I don't blame them for probably paying him most of this movie's budget for probably 2 days worth of filming, because it worked. It worked for me, and I'm sure it worked for the five other fans out there that has seen this movie as many times as I have. So I like it. I think he was great. I feel like he elevated the movie up just a notch more than definitely what it would have been. I think you said something about the best actor of the movie, and I agree. I do think he is probably the best actor of the movie. I think Terry Trias, who played Linda, she's probably the second best actress. But I don't want to discount Andrew
Mhm.
Stevens. I don't want to also keep going back and forth. But I think Andrew Stevens was actually pretty damn good in this movie. But George Kennedy definitely is top notch. He was my pick of favorite. Of course, you could probably put him in any fucking thing, and he would be like my top pick of favorites. So that's how I feel about him. So let's move on to John Lafayette, who played Andre. I know him from a lot of TV work. He was also in one of my all-time favorite movies, which we will be doing an episode of on Video Express called Neon Maniacs. He was also in
Ooh.
Watchers 2. He is a big bit player, and he plays small roles in a lot of stuff. And I'll save this last little like urban legend about him for the end of this. But what did you guys think of John Lafayette, who of course played Andre? Katie, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I really liked him. I thought he was pretty funny. Like, I think the thing about this character and also the character of Neil played by Tommy Hinckley is like they are definitely like the two quote unquote kind of disposable characters in this movie. Like, they don't really get a whole lot to do. They both have very like clearly defined characters, if that makes sense. Like, they both have I mentioned like how everybody's uniform is kind of uniquely styled to reflect their personality, and these two are kind of the quintessential of that. But specifically, Andre, he does have a great line, which is gargoyles schmargoyles, because he just immediately does not believe that there's mutant human gargoyle people out there. But yeah, I think again, he's first to die. He doesn't really have a whole lot to do. He's kind of just like there to die first and be kind of funny sometimes.
Yeah, those were my thoughts exactly. Was like I would have really liked the character because he was very stylized and he does a good job portraying an actual character rather than just reciting lines from a script. But they kill him off so fast that you're just starting to get to know him. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was a little disposable. Him and what was the guy with the Hawaiian shirt? What's his name?
Neil.
Neil. Yeah, I mean I liked both characters, but again, it seemed like they were just kind of harping on some of the old alien tropes
Yeah.
with those characters. But I thought the actors did a good job with it.
I feel like out of all the characters, the characters of Andre and Neil were the most alien
Hmm.
esque,
Hmm.
cliche characters.
Yeah, I
But
agree. I thought yeah, they kind of are just placeholders for the Harry Dean Stanton, and
Right.
I felt terrible because he just passed away. What is the name of the other actor in Alien? Yafet.
Yaphet Koto.
Yes, R.I.P. because he's amazing. But yeah, they feel like just copy paste characters from that with a few extra quirks kind of added in, which is fun. But again, I think something that we say almost every episode is I just wanted to see more. I think it would have been really cool if they had I think horror movies and horror sci-fi in general, it's like you got to walk this line of like how soon are you going to start killing people, and like how many of your characters are expendable enough to where it's entertaining to watch them die, but you don't feel like they're missing from the rest of the movie, if that makes sense. And I felt like once this character died, like I was kind of missing him for the rest of the movie because I just wanted to see more. I feel like he could have been an interesting key to this story. So that would just be like my nitpicky complaint. But otherwise, the actor did a great job with the role that he was given.
Yeah, I wish Andre could have been in it just a little bit more. I don't think he's like the best actor. He's probably the worst actor of the movie. But I did like him. I found him charming. But here's a little piece. And again, for anybody who is new to the show, who hasn't listened to us before, the way we usually do this is I pick a movie, usually from my VHS collection, and I make a list of movies for us to watch. Usually, it's something that Katie has never seen. It's something that I've seen multiple times, and I do no research. I just sit down with a notepad, I pop open a beer, and I watch the movie, and I just jot down shit that I know about the movie or about the actors in the movie or whatever. So maybe this is something that somebody here, maybe Katie or even Jackie, can prove me right or wrong about. I don't know. I've done no research, but there is an urban legend. Of course, we all here have probably seen Jaws Part 4, aka Jaws the Revenge, right?
I
Um,
haven't.
I
No,
haven't
sorry.
either.
oh, okay. Well, you are missing out, young lady. You're missing out. Jaws 4, which is like the most batshit crazy of the Jaws series. Um, there is a wonderful scene towards the end of the movie where when the shark rises out of the water, it roars. Okay, and sharks do not roar. It's literally impossible. But there is an urban legend that John Lafayette is the voice of the roar of the shark in Jaws 4.
Well, I just looked up the IMDb, and John Lafayette sure is credited as additional voices. So, unconfirmed, but he very well could have been.
You know what? In Matt Cloude's universe, John Lafayette, who played Andre in The Terror Within, is the voice of the shark in Jaws 4.
I would have loved to have heard the production meeting, the pitch, where they're like, and then the shark will roar. But I love it. That's great.
All right, real quick, since we've already brought up his partner in crime, Tommy Hinkle, who played, or I'm sorry, Tommy Hinkley, who played Neil in the movie, who of course is also in Watchers 2, which I have named that movie like 3 or 4 times so far this episode. He's also in one of my favorite movies, starring Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen, called Men at Work. But he is also in one of my favorite Christmas holiday horror films, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 4. Real quick, what'd you guys think of Neil?
See, this dude just kind of annoyed me. I'm not gonna lie. like I don't really have much to say about him other than like he kind of just annoyed me. The actor was fine. I don't know. I just wanted him to take that stupid hat off the whole time. It's like, take off your dumb hat.
Yeah, he's got like these like scuba goggles on his head for no fucking reason. He's got scuba goggles and like a Hawaiian shirt under his uniform shirt. And it just seems like he's just like, I'm down to party. Like that's his that's his character. But he's not really like, other than his look, he's not really that memorable outside of it. Like he doesn't really get to do much. I frankly, I watched this last night. I can't even remember how he gets killed off. I don't even remember how he dies.
The gargoyle yanks him into like the elevator, and when they open up the door, he's sitting there with his throat
That's
slashed
right.
open.
Yep.
And he falls out.
It's all coming back to me now. But see, it just wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't that interesting. Even his death was just like, yep, and he's gone.
Yeah, I just feel like he was written in a way where, like, the script didn't do much with him, and that's what they're like, fuck it, just put him in a Hawaiian shirt. Like, that's
Yeah.
his character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit bummed because it's not that I disagree with you guys at all. Like I totally get you, I totally understand it, but I like him, just because like he is that character that like, and you're absolutely right, Jackie. He probably had like he was like a blank slate on the script, and they doctored him up with what he was wearing. But I think the reason I liked him so much is because he's actually one of those characters that I would do in my movie.
Yeah.
Like I would put the Hawaiian shirt on somebody. I would give them that hat. I would give them those goggles for no goddamn reason. Just because like I don't want to say quirkiness, but I've said this before about like the killers and monsters and movies, how like they should always have like a distinctive look or a catchy look or something to remember them by, like, so you do a werewolf, anybody can do a werewolf movie, but if you do something like cool about that werewolf, like you'll specifically remember that werewolf. Like nobody fucking remembers what the werewolf looked like in Howling Part 4, but you remember what the werewolf looked like in Howling Part 1 because of the giant ears and like how it looked. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off subject, but for like just normal everyday characters, I love shit like where you give them like a distinctive hat, you give them like that look of the Hawaiian shirt with the coveralls and the goggles on the head. Because here's the thing, you guys didn't like him, but that's the one thing you fucking remembered is what he was fucking wearing.
But it's the only thing I remember.
Right,
That's
like
the problem. Like I don't
fine.
I don't remember anything else about him except for his dumb hat. And
Yeah.
so,
And that's totally fine.
I feel like it's not that I disliked him. In fact, it's more that he just was kind of like there really isn't anything to him other than his look. And so on
Yeah.
one hand, that can be a little like not that interesting, but on the other hand, like from a filmmaking perspective, like I think it's really cool if you're going to have a character that, like you were saying, is just a blank slate like on a piece of paper, and they don't really do anything, like nothing about what they say or do is particularly unique or interesting, then you might as well give them some kind of a quirky, interesting look. And, like you said, Matt, it's like, I don't know, if you put a werewolf in like a really cool hat, people will remember it.
Yeah. Yep. I almost feel that in some way, shape, or form, like we all know that this movie was a huge ripoff of Alien.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel like they were trying maybe a little bit to blend in a little bit of Aliens,
Yeah.
the sequel, just a little bit. I think personally they failed miserably at this, but I feel like Andre was they were trying a little bit to make him the Apone,
Yeah.
and they were trying to make Neil a little bit of the Hudson.
I can totally see that. Yeah, I think if they'd given Neil a little bit more like bravado and like macho ness,
Yeah,
then he totally could have been a Bill Paxton in Aliens type character.
and of course, Andre. I'm not saying that he was the Apone because he's a person of color. I'm saying that because of the distinct cigar
Oh
chomping.
my god, yeah,
Like
definitely.
I was like every time he chomped on his cigar, I was like, it's fucking Apone from Aliens, man.
Yeah.
So
I
but yeah, I liked him
Yeah, I also I just to kind of bring it back to the whole Alien ripoff, like one of the things that I do like just about this cast as a whole is they don't get a whole lot of time together, but they do kind of all have good I guess they have pretty decent chemistry with each other. I guess what I'm just trying to say is that I love in a sci-fi or a sci-fi horror movie when the crew all has to sit around in a circle and explain what's going on and go through their plan of what they're going to do next. Because I think that's one of the few like opportunities in this movie that you or in movies like this where you can get everybody together and really see how they interact with each other. So that was probably one of the better scenes in this movie to me, because we really just got to see everybody like interacting with each other in a way that made me feel like, yeah, like these people all work together, like they're a crew together. So I think that's probably also something they were trying to maybe lift from Aliens, maybe not completely successfully, but it was an attempt. It was a good attempt.
for sure. Um, so let's we've pretty much gone through our cast here. Let's jump into the to the people behind the camera. Let's talk a little bit. Let's start with the writer of the film, uh, the very cleverly named Thomas Cleaver, who wrote this movie. He. Here's the thing. I don't know. I don't do any research. I don't look up anything. I leave that to Katie. So as far as Thomas Cleaver goes, other than I think he might have done Terror Within 2, the only thing else I know that he has done, and this really calls me out, but again, I am the child of this era, and I watched my late night eight Cinemax and HBO. I know that he was also, I think, either he was either the writer and producer, or maybe just the writer of Emmanuel 4 and 7 with Krista Allen.
Yep.
So other than that, I don't know any fucking thing else this guy has done. Is there anything you can enlighten us on, Katie?
There's not a lot going on here, man. Like he did write The Terror Within 2, and then he's got some other, a few other credits from the early 90s that I've never heard of. And then as you already mentioned, he's got, Emmanuel Concealed Fantasy, and then Emmanuel The Meaning of Love. Um and then his
Yes.
last credit is something called The Haunted Sea from 1997, and then there's nothing else going on here.
So I don't know what that is, but I do know that Roger Corman did The Haunted Sea like in the 50s or 60s.
Mm.
And during the 90s, Roger Corman did a string of 90s remakes of some of his properties. The Wasp Woman, Teenage Caveman, I think,
Mhm.
and Piranha, and a couple others. So it's possible that maybe the Haunted Sea
It
was
is. I'm just
one of
checked now.
those.
Yeah, Roger Corman did also produce this movie, but yeah, that is Cleaver's last credit.
Well, damn it, Cleaver. Wish you could have done more, or maybe not, or at least maybe given me another couple of Emmanuel movies. I know you guys have probably never seen the Emmanuel movies,
Nope.
but I'm about to go off. I'm about to go off on a little. Am I allowed to do a little tangent here about the Emmanuel
I would
series?
love to learn more about whatever the hell this movie is.
Okay, so during I think the late '60s, early '70s, there was a string of Emmanuel movies, which were nothing but skin flicks. These were the soft core porn flicks.
Mhm.
No, no penetration or anything. Yeah, they were just booby movies, sex movies or whatever. And then in the '90s, and here's the funny thing, God, I'm about to go off on a really long tangent. I think I'm about to go spread everywhere. I am the Kevin Smith of horror talk. So you guys have to probably reel me back in here a little bit. But so the Emmanuel movies. So as you know, a lot of the Italian horror films, like the zombie movies,
Mhm.
whatever. So they will do like unofficial sequels. So like
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead was produced by Dario Argento, and when he released it in Italy, it was called Zombie, Zombi, and then they did their own sequel, Zombi 2, which was an unofficial sequel. That type of thing, where they will rip off movies, do unofficial sequels of movies, stuff like that. So the Emmanuel movies, the original ones, were kind of the same thing, where there was like an official one, but then there was like just like a random like littering of unofficial Emmanuel movies. There was even like Emmanuel Black, and I think that's what it was called. Where it was a woman of color in the movie. So like these were like big things during the soft core era. So in the '90s, it was rebooted and starring like one of the most hottest women of all time. You can quote me on this, Krista Allen, and she was a star of these '90s reboots, and they always religiously showed on like it was either like late night Cinemax or Showtime or something like that. And I fucking grew up watching these movies, and like that's part of what my problem is today. Um, but like, but it was kind of like the Django movies, how there was like only like one official real Django movie with Franco Nero, and then like 50 million like unofficial Django movies. Same thing with the Emmanuel movies. But anyway, yeah, the Emmanuel movies are like the skin flicks that I grew up watching. Um, Krista Allen was like the greatest babe of all time, and I knew that Mr. Cleaver was the writer of 4 and 7, and then I can't remember what their pseudo names are. What were they
Oh,
again?
it was hold on, I'll tell you in just a second. I just had the page up. Wrote Okay, so it was Emmanuel Concealed Fantasy, and then
Concealed
Emmanuel The
Fantasy.
Meaning of Love, and he wrote under the pseudonym of TC McKelvey. Which
Yes.
I
Yep.
think
Yep.
that is like a calling card of writers like writing erotica, is they'll just like abbreviate their first name.
I don't know if it was any of these Emmanuel movies, but in this same series of Krista Allen starring, that was hard to say, Emmanuel movies. A couple of them took place in outer space,
Well, that's fun.
which were my favorite, which were like my favorite ones. So I'm not sure if any of these were the outer space ones, but I'm not saying that I recommend you ladies check out Emmanuel series. But for my guys out there and my girls out there, if you can somehow run across copies of the Krista Allen Emmanuel movies, check them out. I think you'll dig them.
I'm sure
Um,
they are streaming somewhere. I'm sure there's some like 480p rip that's like on YouTube or Vimeo
Right.
or something. Like it's out there if
That
you look hard enough.
I feel like I've been familiar with the Emmanuel films for years now, and just having an understanding of what they are. Like I appreciate they exist, but I feel like I don't have to watch them.
Yep.
I feel like I'm
yeah.
comfortable. You know what I
Like
mean?
I'm
Like
good.
it's yeah. I won't die if I never see them.
Yeah.
So I've got a really funny story, and I might cut this out later. I don't know, but I think this is just funny to bring up. So again, like, being a child of the '90s, growing up on the shit that I grew up with, I would go from like this is my late night lineup used to be stuff like, you know, Monster Vision with Joe Bob, and then immediately watching like uh, MTV's Oddities and shit like that. and then like when all that stuff would go off, I would go from like Monster Vision to MTV late night stuff, and then like immediately like flip over to like Showtime or Cinemax and catch whatever forbidden movie I should not be watching at the time. And it was the Emmanuel movies were like that's like what I would look forward to trying to catch, and I thought at a young age like that was it. Like these types of movies were like this was the forbidden shit that you were never supposed to watch. And the first time that I actually saw porn, I was actually like, I was grossed out. I was like, what? What is this? This is disgusting.
Right,
What the
like you
hell?
think you've been like watching porn your whole young adolescence, like just on TV,
Yeah.
and then like some friend is like, "Here's this crazy website," and you're just like, "That's
Yes.
not what? Where's the music? Where's the art?"
Yeah, exactly, dude. That is spot on. I'm not gonna name names of who introduced me to an actual porn, but they showed me something, and I will never fucking forget it. It is burned into my brain for the rest of my life because it fucking it. I don't want to say it scared me, but I was just so
Yeah.
shocked and like it was so grotesque to
Yeah.
me that even to this day, this sounds weird. I'm a 38-year-old man. Even to this day, I cannot look at like porn. Like I will enjoy like a skin flick, and I will enjoy boobies all day on horror movies. But like something about the real deal, just like
Yeah.
Skinamax and especially Krista Allen in the Manuel movies, I guess technically scarred me for life because it instilled in me like that was the best, that was the cream of the crop, and it didn't get no better than that. And
Y
lo and behold, I was opened up to the grotesqueries of the real
You
world.
know, I think that, I haven't seen Emmanuel, but just knowing what limited thing, and if my mom is listening, I've never even heard of porn or softcore porn. I've never even, I don't know what it is. But if I can scholarly kind of imagine, you definitely don't forget that initial shock when you're first shown it. But also, Matt, I was just gonna say, I feel like you're saying maybe you were ruined for life by that, but I think you actually had a positive version of this experience because there's like 10-year-olds now who are just getting like like just hardcore porn like on their like news feeds on their devices every
Yeah,
day, and I feel like that could have the potential to have you have some interesting unhealthy thoughts about how
uh,
sex works. So maybe it's a
true.
good thing that you got your introduction with the artsy softcore shit.
Yeah, because I think that's like a lot of. So when I was growing up, there was like a mom and pop video store, and I can never remember the name of it for some reason, which is crazy because we went there all the time. But I grew up at the very tail end of the video store days, and this was one of those stores that had like the beaded
Oh
curtain,
yeah.
with the adult
Yes, yes.
section. And I remember that, like, I didn't actually watch any of the movies, but I remember going in there and, whoosh, like peeling back the
Yeah.
beads
Yes.
and like just seeing these covers of, I was probably like maybe 5, seeing these covers of like these giant, like inflated boobs and just being like horrified as like a 5-year-old, like that experience that so many people had. And now it is crazy to think about like kids just like having that in their face constantly because it felt like so bad,
Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
so bad but cool.
Yes.
And it's so funny, like I can't believe I'm like still talking about this, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. But it's so funny you bring up the forbidden area of the video store. And ours had a curtain, like an actual
Yeah.
curtain, a red curtain at movie stars.
I
Um
remember that
I
curtain.
remember Yeah, I remember even at age 15, okay? At age 15, I had already done the deed in real life, and I was still too fucking scared to go behind that curtain because it just felt wrong. So I feel you on this. I know all too well what the feeling of behind. It's like fucking the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to
Yeah.
what's behind that
Yes. You will never be the same when you come back out.
curtain. Who I never would have thought when I was putting things together for tonight's episode that us talking about Thomas Cleaver would lead into Such a great conversation.
about
And
first-time porn
I know
experiences.
Mr. Cleaver I know Mr. Cleaver is not out there listening, but my God, I wish he was, because I just realized that the writer of The Terror Within, in some shape or form, kind of like changed the trajectory of who I became
Good Lord.
in
Well,
some small way.
shout out to
How
Thomas Cleaver.
you go, TC? All right, so let's jump over to the director of this movie, uh, Theory Knots. Here's the thing. I know only two things, I think, and I'm not going to cut this out because I need to think. So off the top of my head, Katie, you're gonna have to fucking fact check me
I'm
on this.
ready to go.
I only know. Okay, I know two things from this fucker guy. All right, Watchers 2 and Superboy. He did one
Mhm.
episode of Superboy.
That
That's it.
Yep,
I don't know anything
that is
else.
correct. So my dude Theory Knots has not done a lot. So he has 6 directing credits on his IMDb. The most recent being from 1997 in a movie called Goodbye America, which I know nothing about. And then yeah, we've got a short called Clash: The Last Soldier. And then back to back, he does The Terror Within and Watchers 2, followed by the Superboy episode. And then, other than that, it's a movie called Fortunes of War. And then Goodbye America was his last hurrah. So I could not find anything about this fella.
Yeah, I don't really. There's not enough meat to the bone for me to really talk about, other than I think he did a word that we always use on the show, Katie,
Yep.
serviceable. I think there is some choices that were made that were not the best choices.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in the long run, you got to figure, like, these movies were a dime a dozen, especially in the late '80s, early '90s. And this was just another one of Corman's Concord picture. Get that son of a bitch on video, make a dime. Let's move on to the next one type of movie. But again, the great thing about Roger Corman, I know we're not talking about him right now, we're talking about the director, but the great thing about Corman was the man knew how to make a movie on a dime. He knew how to make a dime off the movie, and he never sacrificed quality. So I feel like these movies, yes, while they were cheap and cheesy, I think they were treated with respect, and I think that's what shines through not only on this movie but all of these movies from this era, from Roger Corman. They were respectful in the source material, and I think yeah, I think the director did a good job with what he had, and I think in the hands of somebody else, this could have been a complete shit show.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give I'll tip my hat to Theory Knots. I think I'll talk a little bit about Watchers 2 in a little bit, which is actually a much better movie. Um, but I have no qualms really. Like I said, there were some choices made that could have been better, but for what it is, I think it's a good job and great direction.
Yeah, I feel like it's not overly distinct in the way the story is told, but it's competent. And
Mm-hmm.
for the purposes of the film, and for like the purposes of a lot of like Roger Corman produced films, like he did the job and he made it work.
Yeah, I pretty much feel the same way. Like I think sometimes it's easy to kind of get into this mindset that kind of like what you were saying, like that a director needs to have this like specific mark or like artistic uniqueness to them. But I think there's definitely a space for that, and I love directors who have a really unique style and a unique vision. But they're definitely like I think there needs to be some love for the director who can competently make, like Matt says, a serviceable movie, because it's not as easy as it looks. And anybody who thinks like, oh, I could just get up there and do it, like it's I would love, feel free to, I challenge you to, but it's definitely not as easy as it looks. And I think when I think if you don't notice, it's one of those things that, like, if I don't notice the directing, sometimes that's a good thing. Like the fact that there's nothing
Yeah.
in this that particularly stands out. in this case, I think is a good thing because it just means that I can focus more on like the plot and the characters and like what is actually happening instead of thinking like, oh, that's an interesting stylistic choice, which can sometimes actually take you out of it a little bit. So yeah, I thought he did a perfectly competent job with this one.
Yeah, I mean, the movie's not trying to be artful. Like, it
Right.
never once tries to go for something, like, elevated. So, like, it works, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on all fronts. And again, very good serviceable job. Um, I'm gonna bounce right over into what I was talking about earlier with Watchers 2. So, are you guys familiar at all with the Watchers franchise?
I don't think so.
Familiar, have not indulged. Do
Gotcha.
tell.
So, it's weird that I call it a franchise because it's a franchise you never hear anyone talk about, even like hardcore horror fans. You never really hear Watchers come up. And again, it just
Mhm.
falls back to me being that fucking kid who rented every movie he could get his grubby little paws on. The Watchers series, which was all produced by Roger Corman, the first one starring Corey Haim. It's about this genetics lab who creates this dog who's got like telekinetic powers that's psychic linked to like this creature they've created in the lab, and the creature breaks loose, and the dog breaks loose, and the dog teams up with a human and has a psychic link with the monster, and it's a whole manhunt for the monster and dog movie, and it's funny they recycled the exact same script over and over again for part one, two, and I think four.
That's fun.
Um, three was three was the only one that was different, and that was a complete rip off of Predator. Like I mean, like 100% rip off. I can't believe they didn't get sued. But anyway, the cool thing about Watchers 2 is it's my favorite of the franchise. It's starring Mark Singer, who of course is from Beastmaster. It was directed by Thierry Knotts, and here's the fun thing. So it has basically almost this entire cast from this movie, and it has almost the exact same sets from this movie, and it has the exact same effects crew from this movie. And that's what I'm basically doing a full circle of what I introduced at the beginning with how they would write a script, build a set, and then utilize that same script and that same set for as much as they possibly could. Um, the Dean and Star Jones and a bunch of the other effects guys that worked on the Terror Within, of course, they built the monster in this movie, and the monster in Watchers 2 is almost the exact fucking same monster. Like there's hardly no difference whatsoever. That's how I kind of want to end our discussion with the filmmakers behind this was with the Watchers 2,
Hmm.
and we will be covering this movie at a later date. And funny enough, this movie was actually originally on our schedule for our Roger Corman month, but I actually changed it to The Terror Within because I felt like it was a little bit more lesser known, even
Hmm.
more so than Watchers 2. But we'll get to it eventually.
Yeah.
Um,
I did
but yeah,
I did really
that's
quick. I wanted to There was one more person on this crew that had some pretty interesting credits that I wanted to talk about just really quick, and that is the cinematographer Ron Schmidt. So this guy has had a very prolific career as a cinematographer. So he is most known.
Walking Dead.
Yeah, he did 25 episodes of The Walking Dead from between 2011 and 2013. He also was the director of photography for The Mist in 2007 and a few other movies that I found on his IMDb that our listeners
Lord
might
of
rec. Yep,
Illusions.
we've got Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, we've got Ghoulies Go to College, Beastmaster
Oh,
2 Through the
Classic.
Portal of Time, and then Brain Dead, 1990s Brain Dead.
I can't believe I did not remember Ghoulies 3, which I don't know if you know this about me, but I am like die fucking hard Ghoulies fan. Um, I'm a I'm Ghoulies 2 for life. Which interestingly enough, Star Andrew, who played Sue, she's got a very small blink and you'll miss it scene or part in Ghoulies 2. So we've got a little bit of ghoulie stuff going on with this movie too.
I am not surprised at all that you're a Ghoulies fan.
Yeah.
Like, what little I know, like, what the little time we've, like, actually interacted with each other, like, that just makes sense to me, and I respect that.
I feel like you can't be a person of my age that grew up in the era that I grew up in and not like at least one Ghoulie movie. Like I feel like it's impossible.
That's funny.
As a matter of fact, see, I get off on these tangents so quickly,
Uh
or get on the tangent. I should say. Faye, who I talked about on our last episode, who is the leader of the Psycho Cinema film club at the Alamo Draft House in Winchester. Her and I have had a friendly rivalry going on for the better part of probably like 5 years. So she is like a die hard Ghoulies Part One fan. Like I think that's actually her favorite movie is Ghoulies, and almost every year, not every year, but almost every year for her birthday, she gets them to screen Ghoulies on the big screen at the Alamo. But we've always had this friendly rivalry because I'm a diehard Ghoulies 2 fan, so we're always like combative with which one is the better film, and so I'm now saying this in front of everybody who's listening. Faye, if you're listening, Ghoulies 2 is the better movie.
So I've never seen any of the Ghoulies movies, and so now I feel like I need to give myself a double feature of Ghoulies 1 and 2, and then announce which one I think is better, because I need to take sides in this Ghoulies war.
We should do. I know we've been talking for a little while about like we're going to go out with a bang for this season. Like what can we do that would be a great like season finale, you
Yeah.
know? And you know what would be great is to have some of our favorite guests. Like I don't know how this would work, but have some of our favorite guests return, and we do like a 4-part episode because there's 4 Ghoulies movies,
Ooh,
and
let's break them
maybe
down.
we should do Ghoulies Russian Roulette, and we do like a pyramid tier, and we finally after all 4 episodes we declare the winner of the best Ghoulies movie.
I actually love that idea. I think we can even come up with like a scoring rubric to help us determine
Yes.
scientifically which Ghoulies is the best Ghoulies.
And I don't know if any other
So,
podcast has done that. So
Exactly. See,
I
there
think
you
this is
go.
the
it might be a first time.
This is the first, and you know what? This is the official announcement, folks.
Fuck
You're
it,
hearing
yeah.
it here first. Our season finale of Video Express will be a Ghoulies marathon, but not just any marathon. We're going to have special guests. We're doing tiers. It's going to be a big thing, and we're going to declare the official winner of the best Ghoulies movie.
Well, you
So
heard it
stay
here
tuned for future
first.
details. That's right. Jackie, since you're a part of this monumentous occasion and announcement, we'll go ahead and say that you're going to be one of the guests on the
Absolutely.
Ghoulies episode.
All right, I want Ghoulies go to college, bro.
All right, we'll have you on Ghoulies 3.
Nice.
All right. So what's next, Katie? What do we got next?
So, okay, normally in the show, this is the part where I talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of this movie, how it was made, maybe some fun facts about stuff that happened behind the scenes. But y'all, first of all, it's been a very busy week, and your girl here has not had a lot of time to dig into it. But what I did try to dig into, I found nothing. I didn't really find anything about the budget or any behind the scenes interviews or any real tidbits on how it was made. But I think, based on what you were telling us about Roger Corman and his style, like I think we can probably infer a lot of things about like how this movie was made, as far as like the kind of like, oh, we've just got this set, we were using it for something else, let's throw some people on it, put them in different costumes and get a guy in a rubber suit and have at it. But I did find a very interesting, there was a single sentence in the Wikipedia for this movie that I read the sentence and I was very taken aback by it and confused, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't find anything else about it. And I ended up having to, like I said earlier in the episode, I had to get a free trial for this like newspaper archive like website to dig into the Austin American Statesman from April 1989. So during a screening of this movie in 1989, there were some teenagers that came to the movie, and for some reason, I believe it was two girls and a guy. And for some reason, the two girls had found a gun in their mom's house and were playing with it. they had taken and I promise this doesn't end as tragically as it sounds like it's going to be. It's not that sad. Everyone is fine.
You're building up some like Robert Stack unsolved mysteries shit.
Right? Yeah. So it's completely solved. But basically, pretty much right as the Terror Within at the 9:30 p.m. showing started, one of the girls shot her friend in the head. Now the friend did not die. The friend, it was a I guess it was like a 25 caliber, 25 caliber gunshot wound to the head near his left eye, and I think he had some, damage done to his vision, but he ended up surviving, and as far as I know, doesn't have any like permanent life altering damage. So that's why I just wanted to put that disclaimer out. I'm not about to lead up to some like tragic like theater shooting or anything like that, but basically these kids were playing with a gun that they'd found in the parents' house, and they'd taken out the I don't know guns, the thing that you put the bill shoot. My whole family is like, you, why do you mean you don't know? The thing that the bullets go in, the thing.
Chamber?
No, not the chamber. The thing that you put the cartridge, the magazine, the clip, yeah, that thing. Oh my god,
Yeah, okay.
embarrassing. Okay, they
I'm leaving this in, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I'm floundering today. So they had taken that out thinking like, oh yeah, we took the bullets out, there's no bullets in here, but they forgot to check if there was a bullet in the chamber. So right as the credit, like right as the movie started, the friend went April Fools and pulled the trigger like right on her friend's forehead and shot him pretty much in the eye. And I think kind of, so the fact, I'm going to say the funniest part of this, because nobody died, so everybody's fine. So the funniest part of this is that nobody else in the theater apparently even knew this. Like, everybody just in the audience just kept watching the movie, and nobody had any idea what had happened.
They just thought it was like part of the sound mix or something.
I imagine that it happened in a particularly loud part of the movie, and it's not, as far as I know, I don't think 25 cal is particularly like a particularly large or loud kind of gun, so maybe it just kind of got muffled. And yeah, they basically just like picked up their friend and dragged him out into the lobby, and he just was like, I can't see. And then they had to call the police and like take him to the hospital. But yeah, I think just the funniest part to me was in the article where it just says the floor manager said the showing of the film continued without interruption, and said that most of those in attendance were unaware that a shooting had even occurred. So I hope, I hope that I don't know, I just feel like what if what if somebody listening now is like, I was at that showing on April 1st, 1989 in Austin, Texas. So yeah, they were going to charge her with reckless conduct, which is a class B misdemeanor, which is only like $1,000 fine and a few days in jail. So I couldn't find any information on like if this girl actually like got charged and went to jail and stuff, but it just mainly, I just thought it was very interesting that there was a almost sort of true crime related story directly related to the Terror Within here.
That is a crazy ass fucking story. I like. Can we hunt down the guy that was shot and have him as a guest on the episode?
I would love to. Yeah, his name was Robert Latta of Austin, Texas. So if anyone happens to know anything about this, feel free to hit us up. I would love to talk to him or talk to anybody who was working at the theater or even just watching the movie, and maybe like, can you imagine going to a movie, you go to some 9:30 p.m. showing of just like this random movie called The Terror Within, you watch the movie, maybe you like it, maybe you hate it, but nothing out of the ordinary, and then you open up the Sunday paper a few days later and it's like 17-year-old shot in the head in a horror movie like in the movie that you were watching. So
that is nuts. All right, well, before we move along, and especially after this crazy ass story, let's get to one last thing. Let's get to one of my favorite things to talk about. Let's talk about the makeup effects of the movie. Jackie, how do you think the effects held up for The Terror Within?
So first off, what do they call them? Gargoyles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just Rawhead Rex, man. That
Yeah,
was
it
just
was.
straight up Rawhead Rex. But I'm okay with it. Like, I liked the character design, and I could tell that whoever made the costume or whoever was on the makeup team was like really satisfied with the final product, because every time there was a shot of the monster, it was like so lit,
Oh
man.
my
Like the
god,
and I mean
Yeah.
yeah.
just like heavily lit, not lit like cool, like just light blasting on it.
Way
Like,
too
we've
lit.
just got to
Yeah.
show this costume off. But I mean, it was a good costume. I think they should have gotten a different guy to be inside of the costume. What are
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
thoughts? I mean,
Yeah,
he kind of just went through the motions, man. That's what I
yeah.
thought.
I feel like they probably I think one of the funniest parts to me is there's like a part where the gargoyle is just like banging on a door and like grunting and growling, and you could really hear that it's just some dude in a suit with like no extra like voice effects or anything. So yeah, I think they probably could have gotten a better monster actor to kind of make this thing feel more sinister and intimidating. um I think that the design of it is pretty decent. And the suit itself, I don't want to bash it. Like, I think it was made well, but I do have like
Mm-hmm.
some little minor complaints. And I think, like, you mentioned like how well lit it is, and I think that was a mistake in this case because there's just not I feel like it could have used a little bit more like shading and depth, and when they put
Yep.
it in just like direct like fluorescent light, you could really see that it was like foam rubber. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think really the main thing that I would have changed about the monster itself is I would have gooped him up more. I would have slimed up that guy, because I
Yeah.
think what really like made it feel like man in a rubber suit is that when you can see it in full light the way it is, you can just see the texture of it, and you just know that it's not skin. Whereas if they had
Right.
just taken some like Vaseline and just
Mm-hmm.
rubbed it all over him, that would have been a little bit more effective, and I think it would have like brought out some of the like shading and the like shadow and depth in that costume. I like his like weird jaw and like his like weird like piranha shark teeth. That was pretty cool. um so I mean, overall I think the monster could have been cooler, but I liked it. I think what really stood out to me as far as effects goes is the fucking C-section scene, man. i
Hell
was
yeah.
I was like, that was it's one of those moments where like you watch a scene like that and like objectively it's pretty disturbing, especially when you think about what is actually going on. And like I like I commend anyone who decides to be a mother and wants to be pregnant, but just the idea of it for me personally freaks me out. And so I've already have this like idea of like being freaked out by pregnancy, and then I'm seeing it and they're cutting into her belly and there's like a nasty little demon baby in there. Like, all of that is really disturbing. But it's one of those things that like as soon as the scene ended, I just turned to my boyfriend and I was like, that was fucking gnarly. Like, that was awesome. Like, they just slice her open and just rip out this little like gargoyle baby that just burst out of her stomach, like very reminiscent of like chest burster scene in Alien,
Mm-hmm.
of course. And then it just scurries off into the into the vents. But I think that whole sequence, like, of them cutting into her, like, that all looked very real and very convincing. And like I was like physically reacting, like when the doctor was like sticking her hand into the cut. Like, that was so gross to me. So I thought effects like that were really effective, and I think that scene particularly like shines as far as special effects go for this movie.
I just think, as like in terms of all scenes in the movie, I think that is the definitive
Yes.
scene of the flick. Like, that was my favorite part. Like, the way it
Agreed.
was cut together, it was just like actually shocking. Like I was saying earlier, like, I didn't see the film like going in the direction it did, and
Same.
then like there's just this spurt of violence and this great shot of the blood hitting her in the face, and I loved that part of it so much.
I'm glad I'm going last on this because I feel like I'm about to roll on another tangent. So All right, so my feelings on the effects on this movie, Katie, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because that's how I got my start was in effects.
Yeah.
So my feelings on this is a yo-yo effect. Some of it's great, some of it's bad. So first of all, let's talk about the monster. Let's talk about the quote unquote gargoyle. Jackie, you 110% like that creature. When you said Rawhead Rex, you're pretty much spot on. Whereas Rawhead Rex kind of looks like a demon dinosaur wearing like S&M gear. Um, I feel like the monster in this is what it actually looks closer to what Rawhead Rex probably should have looked like because he looked like he was like made together of like sewn together meat
Hmm.
and like pieces were shown. And I don't know if you guys have ever read the original Clive Barker story, but the original Rawhead Rex was a giant penis.
Of course it
It was
was,
a giant,
because it's Clive
yeah,
Barker.
because it's
Yeah.
Clive fucking Barker. Yeah, but the original Rawhead Rex was like a giant, like phallic penis monster with teeth, and like I remember watching this movie at one point and literally saying this thing would have been a great Rawhead Rex. But then this is where I'm going to pull back and say, as cool looking as it was and as cool as of a design as it was, if this thing would have excelled so much more with dark lighting, if
Mhm.
this thing had been diffused and just darkly lit, it would have come off not only better looking, but I think even more menacing.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so many fucking movies where you will say, God, you can hardly see the monster. And of course, there's always a saying: the less you see is sometimes scarier. And I think this movie would have really benefited from that. Um, and as far as the actor and the costume, 100% is basically a barroom brawler in a foam costume. There's no acting to that, and it sucked. Uh, but yeah, I think the creature looked cool. Um, every twist and turn, you could see like rips in the suit. You could see seams in the suit. You could see imperfections in the suit. You could see where like take after take after taking a beating, like pieces of the suit was wearing and like falling off, and that could have also been hidden with dark lighting. Um, th- this is in no way like a negative to Dean Jones, who was the lead effects guy who built this creature, along with his brother Star Jones. This is a very, very, very early in their career, like just hitting their start. So I think they made a very cool looking monster. And also, you got to remember with the type of movies that Corman produced, these were so breakneck speed. Like they would write the fucking script on Thursday, cast it on Friday, and they'd be fucking shooting by Sunday. So that gave them Saturday to build a fucking monster. So, and that in that respect, I think the effects were very well done because A, there was probably no fucking budget for them to work with, and B, like time restraints out the yang. So for all of its faults, I will give it an extra plus because of knowing what they probably had to deal with. I the kills are very mundane and off screen most of the time, but what we do see, I think, is executed well. So most of the deaths are just slashes across the face and throat, which happen. It's boring, but at least the slashes looked good, and
Mhm.
the prosthetics were good, and the blood splurting was good. And something that I have to really say about this movie is the color of blood in this movie was really fucking good. Like it
Yeah.
had some really nice colored blood in this film. Um, sorry if I always geek out during this part
No,
of the
I love
show.
it.
So Dana Star Jones, pretty much the lead effects technicians on this movie. I actually Robert Fillion, who is the director of photography on one of my movies, actually had I think Star Jones work on one of his movies. I think they originally hail from North Carolina.
Oh, nice.
And also, a little shout out to one of my favorite actresses to work with, who's also one of my closest friends, Christy Johnson. Christy was in
Christy.
Toby Hoop. Yeah, Christy was in Toby Hooper's Mortuary, and Dean and Star Jones were the effects guys on that. Because they also worked on Toby Hooper's Toolbox Murders. So
Mhm.
after Toolbox Murders, they went and worked on Mortuary, which Christy was in. But, I mean, they've got a really long, uh, great career. Of course, Slumber Party Massacre 3, which was also a Corman movie, they did the effects on that. but they did everything. I mean, they really worked themselves up the ladder. They like went up the ladder and came back down and then went back up again. I think it's just because they are guys that like doing old school prosthetic effects. But I mean, they've done like Star Trek Six, X Men First Class, Neon
Oh
Demon,
wow.
but then like I said, like Toolbox Murders and Mortuary and stuff like this. So very cool. But I don't I've never listened to any other reviews or shows talk about Terror Within. So I can't vouch and say this, but I feel like probably anytime this movie is talked about and the effects are talked about, Dean and Sarah Jones are probably like the main focus of those names. But while we're doing the show and I'm being the nerd that I am, I want to give a shout out to Greg Landerer who did effects on The Hidden and Halloween 5, and William Forsh who did Critters, Buffy the Vampire Slayer the movie, Lost Boys, Exorcist 3,
Damn.
Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Dolls, Howling 4. So there was a really great effects team behind this movie, and I think again like the effects lacks in so many departments, but again that's why I kind of want to say it's due to time restraints because these are guys that are chomping at the bit and cutting their teeth in this profession in their early days, and I think it really comes across that they busted their asses and in the last moment like pulled together some really cool shit, and again especially on the quote unquote birthing scene, like that is a very cringe scene, cringe in a good way.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to go yo-yo on this too. While I give it props for the amazing cutting and prying open of the cavity and everything, and the the violence of the blood sport, like all that kicks ass. But then the next thing you know, like this like Muppet of a monster baby just kind of
I love
like
him.
flops it flops out, and while the little Muppet monster is like it's okay, but what gets me every goddamn time is when the motherfucker starts crawling
Oh
away.
my god.
It is it is so blatantly like your run of the mill like plastic baby doll painted red just with like an effects monster head put on the doll, because if you pay close attention to the arms of the baby, it's like that like baby plastic baby doll you see in like every dollar store, and the same like sorry I just hit my microphone, the same little like rolls and shit that you see like that's in the baby's arms, like
Yes.
that's the goddamn plastic baby doll that's like 250 at Family Dollar right now, painted red.
See,
But
that didn't bother me though. Like I found that kind of
no,
charming actually.
Yeah.
yeah. So I say this on every episode that I prefer um shit. Like I think I said on the episode that just came out on our Bloodsuckers from Outer Space episode, how we'll take like a hunk of like lunch meat with a bone sticking out of it over like a well sculpted silicone prosthetic piece.
Yeah.
Um and like I look, I have no room to talk in my effects career, what little when there was. I worked on a movie that needed zombies, and the director gave me full reign to do any zombies I want. So of course I would have get a real life pregnant woman to play a zombie, and I sculpted and made an umbilical cord with a dead baby, and I hooked it to the crotch of her pants, and she walked around dragging a dead baby behind her. And like
Incredible.
I literally did the same thing, dude. I'd use one of those plastic baby dolls and just threw some latex and cotton and fake blood on it, and off she went. But and again, the reason I say yo-yo, I'm not saying it was a bad thing. It is charming, but it goes from like something really fucking cool to like 2 seconds later that it's a little bit jarring. Now,
Mhm.
if it had been just like cheesy across the board, I'm totally fucking on board. If it had been really good across the board or really bad across the board, either way, I'm just saying it's a little bit jarring how it goes from this great shot of the cutting open of the belly and prying open and blood splurting to then like Family Dollar,
Yeah.
baby monster.
I like what you were saying about the monster suit though, and how, with these Roger Corman movies, and again, like I mentioned, I don't know exactly how this specific movie was made, but I imagine it probably was something very similar to we wrote the script one day, we cast it another day, we had like 2 or 3 days, maybe at most, to put together a monster suit, and now we shoot it. So, especially when you take that into consideration, like the suit itself is pretty impressive. So I think it's more of like a directing slash director of photography thing, because like it just choosing to light it the way that they did a disservice to the design of it. So yeah, I think if they
Right.
just kept a little bit of it in shadow a little bit more, it would have made it look less like a rubber suit. But yeah, overall, I think it was pretty cool, and I think it's really cool that the guys that made it like went on to do all these other like crazy movies for Toby Hooper, and like you said, the Neon Demon. Like I love that movie. That's just so
Yeah.
out like that. That's crazy. So I like that a lot.
Now, interestingly enough, I don't know if Theory Knots like learned his lesson from this movie, or if the suit, because again, they reused the suit in Watchers 2, but I think they probably like fixed it up a little bit and made like a different head for it. But regardless, same director, same crew,
Hmm.
same cast almost. But I don't know if they learned their lesson from overlighting the monster, or if they just had a different lighting crew for Watchers 2. But I find it so funny that Watchers 2 is the complete opposite, where you can barely see the goddamn thing.
Mm.
Like it
They
is
tried to
just in the
overcorrect.
shadows. Yeah, they literally went from one extreme on the Terror Within to the fucking complete other on Watchers 2,
Yeah.
where you can barely see the goddamn monster. It's so funny. All right. Well, with that said, Jackie, let's we're rounding up the end here. Tell us your final thoughts on the Terror Within.
So I'm gonna say that I liked it. I did not love it. But also you have to take into consideration my personal taste in film. I consider myself somewhat of a horror aficionado, but action horror and sci-fi horror are not like completely my jam, and I feel like this film is both of those subgenres very much so. I think it's cut in a way that's fun. I think the performances are fun, and even though we just critiqued the monster design and the light, I like the monster, man. Like I do enjoy the aesthetic of the film, and I thought it was a fun watch.
Right. Katie?
Well, I also liked it but didn't love it. I think one thing that I've really enjoyed about doing this show is I get to see all of these movies that I'd probably never just like pick out of the blue. Like I just don't think I would have like see the Terror Within like scrolling through Tubi and been like, I'm gonna watch this random movie. So I appreciate having an excuse to watch these movies I've never seen before. So I think overall, it's a lot of fun. It definitely has its flaws. It's not perfect, but I think that's okay. Like I think it like I kind of said before, it's definitely one of those movies that feels like you just kind of turned it on late at night. It was just surfing channels and there it is. So I think, it's definitely worth a watch. Again, with most of the movies that we cover here, I feel like this is a movie that would be really fun to watch with a group of people, especially people who have never seen it before, without telling them anything that's going to happen. Because when that C-section scene happens, I was yelling at the TV. I had no idea what was coming. So yeah, I think it was a lot of fun, and it's not my favorite, but it was a good time to watch. So I liked it.
So we know how I am. I'm not going to say I love it, but again, it tickles my nostalgia. I grew up with the movie. I watched it multiple times on television. It was in my pile of VHS tapes that I purchased from the actual Video Express store when they closed down. So it's nostalgic for me. And I agree with you guys. It's not a great movie. It's not something that I would recommend to anyone to like continually watch like I do. But I but I love it enough that you know, before 2021 ends, I'll probably watch it again for my 21st time. So that's enough of recommendation for me. I think it's got a good, solid cast. It's serviceable. I think the direction is good. It's got a cool monster, great, C-section or whatever scene, abortion scene. So fun to see some of these effects guys doing some of their first time works. So I will always give it 2 thumbs up, regardless. Also because I'm a Roger Corman addict, so I'm always going to champion The Terror Within.
Definitely. Well, Matt, we have made it to the end. We've made it to your favorite part of the show, although we kind of already know what the answer is here. But usually I ask you to rank this movie on the TNA meter. And we've already determined that if you pause it just right, you can see a single nipple at one point. But take it away, Matt.
Barely.
How do you rate it?
If you pause it just right, you can see like the side of an areola. So it's
Great.
not like yeah. So here's how I'm gonna rank this one. Let's see. Star Andreef is fucking beautiful. Terry Trias is beautiful. I'm sure it was a body double after Sue and David obviously shagged. There's a scene where like he's laying down asleep and like she walks by and like touches his face or whatever, and all you see is like her booty and like a
Yeah.
pair of like underwear. It was probably a body double. I'm going to count that and pretend it was her. And then again, of course, for the if you pause it just right scene, I'm going to give The Terror Within 3/4 of a star on the TNA meter. 3/4 of a star out of 10.
That's
Not
fair.
very good.
Ooh.
Yeah. All
Not
right.
very good. But
Oh, great. I do, kind of going off of that, I'd like to give a shout out to late 80s, early 90s high cut bikini briefs because
Mhm.
that was a look that I would love to come back. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah,
so
that
would I.
was something I noticed as well.
If we could just bring back like the clothing from like 1993 to like 1999, and the hair, like the big hair from like 1989 from to like 1996, and then like the high cut bikini things for chicks, I would die a happy person. That's my jam.
Unfortunately, all I can think of though when you said 1993 to like 1997, I'm just like, I don't know, Jenko jeans would like to have a word with you. I don't think we're ready to bring
Jinko
those
jeans was
back.
my goddamn jam.
Of course
Lady.
you were a
That was
Jenko
my
jeans
jam.
kid, of course.
Damn right I was. Damn right. I had my fucking Jinko jeans. I had the ones. I also had the pair that had the blacklight dragon going down the one leg.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know
Dude,
me.
you were cool.
So
Yeah, that's cool.
fucking right. You know what else needs to make a comeback? The Emmanuel and space movies.
Let's do it. Come on, whoever's listening, someone
I want to do a reboot. I myself want to do one.
I fully
Not
support
in it.
you in
Not
this.
in it. I want to make one.
I support this.
Oh Jesus. All right. Well, we've reached the end. We we want to thank Jackie Kelly for joining us on this crazy ass episode.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. And like you were saying, Katie, this is a movie that I would have never watched unless I had, a little homework to do. So thank
Yeah.
you for having me on and introducing me to something that is a little bit out of my wheelhouse.
Totally. Like, thank you for being on the show. And Jackie, like, where can people find you if they want to see what you're up to? Do you have any new projects coming up that you want to shout out?
I have a couple. I've got a film that should be coming out hopefully later this year called The Manor Room 6 that stars Bill Oberst Jr. and Debbie Rochon.
Ooh.
And another project that I worked on with Wicked Pixel Cinema. It's kind of top secret. I can't say too much about it, but that's on the horizon in post-production right now. But yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can follow me at actress Jackie Kelly. I post all kinds of stuff, what I'm up to on there. And a lot of my dog. It's a lot of my
Yay.
dog, if you're into that.
Well, you know what, folks? We also want to thank our sponsor, the Alamo Drafthouse of Winchester, Virginia. The Alamo Drafthouse, celebrating cinema of yesteryear and today, featuring a wide variety of beer and adult beverages, as well as a rotating menu of delicious foods. Alamo Drafthouse Cinema elevates the cinematic experience with their commitment to exceptional picture and sound. Catch the latest blockbuster or your favorite cult film at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia, at 181 Kernstown Commons Boulevard.
Yeah, shout out to Alamo Drafthouse. And thanks for listening, y'all. If you have thoughts about the Terror Within or anything else that many of the topics that we've covered tonight, including Emmanuel, if you want to suggest a movie for us to cover, or if you just want to drop by and say hi, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Video Express Pod.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much again for joining us. We're going to sign off, and we'll see you on the next episode. Until next time, just remember, please be kind, rewind, but most importantly, just be kind. I'm Matt.
And I'm Katie.
And I'm Jackie.
And we'll catch you on the next episode of Video Express.
Bye-bye.